everybody and welcome back to Very Biased Opinions. It's time for another review of another Oxford United game. Today the Yellows were at home to Gillingham and it's more frustration, I'm afraid. But it was a good game of football, and you have to say Oxford absolutely threw everything at Gillingham at times in this game, certainly at the second half, but they just couldn't get that winning goal. It ended Oxford United 1, Gillingham 1. We still search for the first win in September, and we haven't won for what seems like a while, 4 games I think that is. But the performance was a hell of a lot better today than what we saw against Cheltenham, certainly Cheltenham, and Wickham the time before, and then going back to that lazy second half against Wimbledon, where we just sort of switched off and got punished. So good signs in that regard, but still more frustration that we have to create so many bloody chances before we can score a goal. But let's start by looking at how Oxford lined up in this one. Arguably their strongest lineup. Brannagan came back in. Moore came back into the back line for McNally, and in the end it was Sykes who missed out. Probably a lot of people were a bit surprised by that, myself included. I thought he'd been one of the better players this season. Brannagan and Kane played in the centre midfield with Goran behind, and then Henry was wide on the right with Gavin White wide on the left, and with Matty Taylor up front. Gillingham lined up the same, 4-3-3. From what we remember of Gillingham last season, they're a very, very combative side. They're not going to make this game. They don't want this game to be open, and they're going to try and pick Oxford off from set pieces, I would say, in direct football. But they've got like Valdane Oliver. He's already got 5 goals this season. Alex Macdonald, ex-Oxford United, as we know, and probably one of the best named players on debut, Sithole. How many commentators are going to get that wrong down the years? And in a game where Oxford needed a fast start, well, you always want a fast start, they absolutely got it. 5 minutes into the game, the first time we really got onto an attack, and it really came out of nothing. The more you look at it, it's a really good ball over the top from Herbie Kane, very well weighted. Taylor's in behind, Gillingham completely caught cold. Taylor one-on-one. Puts his striking woes behind him, and Oxford United are 1-0 up, baby. Great start to the game. We really needed to kick on from there, but Oxford were a house of fire at the start of this game. First 10, 15, 20 minutes all over Gillingham, creating lots of chances. Taylor had another header as early as the 8th minute, I think, which hit like either the frame of the goal somewhere between the post and the crossbar. But in the back of your mind, we were always thinking that, it's good, we're playing well, the football's looking pretty controlled, we're in control of the game, but we need to get this second goal. We need to get it because you just know something's going to happen. Gillingham were quite content to sit in this game at the start. They were quite content to just weather the storm for however long they needed to, and then pick their moments. And they certainly did that, and they grew into this first half. And much of that is Oxford kind of letting them, but they did play some good football themselves, although a lot of it being very direct. But the chances that came, as we all thought they would, or I thought they would, came from set pieces. We got a warning shot across the bow. A huge missed opportunity from Oliver from a free kick, which Oxford cleared. But then the second phase of play, it's just dozy defending. And Oliver's got a free header about the penalty spot. And he really should score, but it drifts just wide. But Oxford did not learn from that. And they gave away another cheap free kick. And it just almost seemed to stand off, really. It was like standing off, waiting for something to happen. And we invited Alex Macdonald to take this shot. And look, before I go any further, what a hit from Alex Macdonald. It was a great strike. It's like 25, 30 yards out, pinged along the floor into the bottom corner. From a Gillingham point of view, that's a screamer, an absolute screamer. From an Oxford point of view, you're always going to look at a goal from that distance and think, how could we stop it? And as I said, I think the defenders were just defenders and midfielders a bit lazy, not getting out to close him down. It seemed like we were just kind of quite content to let them have the ball in that period of the field. Could Stevens have saved it? I don't know. I'm pretty critical on Jack Stevens. I thought he had a good game, made some good saves in the first half as well, kept us in it. But it was a strange, flat performance from then on in the first half. After a good 20 minutes at the start, everything just felt a bit flat. The crowd felt flat, and it just felt a bit like how the season's going at the moment. It's just like not really rolling our way. Second half, though, was full Oxford in full gear, and Oxford really raised the tempo in this second half. Everything was a lot more clinical. They played with so much more purpose. They pressed a lot higher, won the ball a lot quicker, and the movement was really good as well. It was just that final clinical piece of finishing, sometimes denied by some great defending, sometimes denied by some good goalkeeping and some erratic goalkeeping, but he got the job done coming in goal for Gillingham. But I think anybody who watched that game today will just can't believe Oxford did not get a second goal in that game. There were some shots from Brannagan from distance. There was a header from Goran where he just got underneath the ball. Shots from Sykes. There were times we were getting down to the byline and the crosses just weren't falling to the right person. When it wasn't going your way, you always felt every time Gillingham had a long throwing or a set piece or a counter-attack that Oxford were going to be sucker punched and we'd end up losing this game 2-1 because we've seen that script like a million times before. But Oxford kept going right to the end, and there's some things that annoyed me about the game, and I'll get to it, but I can't really give Oxford too much criticism because I actually thought the game was really good and I enjoyed it, and it was just that final goal that was just missing, which would have turned a frustrating display into a really good display, I would have thought. But sometimes the decision-making just really annoys me, and I harp on about this a lot. We still look toothless from set pieces. There's so many times where players get balls out wide, and it's just an aimless cross, really, into no one. And sometimes they can drive to the byline, and they don't. Brannagan had multiple shots in this game. Sometimes he's trying like dinks little curlers, and you're just thinking, just put your foot through it and smack it. And the same with Long. He had chances as well. But for me, Oxford's best player, without a shadow of a doubt, was Herbie Kane. I thought he was fantastic. Every time he got on the ball, he looked to cut above, really. And really drove Oxford forward really well. And his passing was incisive and inventive. A lot better than what we saw against Cheltenham. And he's certainly getting the kind of ring rust out of his system. And I thought he would be better. And this was a very promising display. And I'm sure the more Oxford play with him, the more exciting that will be. Because the more chances he'll create and the more they'll be used to his sort of creativity. A bit like how Elliot Lee was kind of that like tricky sort of player we had last year. I think Herbie Kane's very much like that and always wanted the ball as well. And I thought that was really, really impressive for him. Another thing that annoys me is just sometimes the wingers just don't drive enough at the defenders. Like so many times White just doesn't take people on and Bowden doesn't take people on. And while we're talking about Bowden, what a sitter he missed. My God. Keeper dropped the ball. All he's got to do is tap it into an empty net and he puts it over the bar. I cannot believe how he did it. Maybe we could have had a penalty at the end with Sykes running clean through a get on goal. Not really clean through, but he reckons he was taken out by a defender. But it didn't roll our way. And I'm sure there's a load of other chances that we had that I haven't put down in this video because I've forgotten about just while the camera's on me. But I think we had something like getting up towards 30 shots on goal, which is a hell of a lot of shots. And to only come away with one goal shows you that we did well in one form of creating the chances. But again, when are we going to start putting the ball in the back of the net? When are we going to start scoring more than one goal in a game? Because you just leave yourself open. Leave yourself vulnerable. This game could have very well been done and dusted. And we could have walked away with 3 easy points. But as it is, it's just you've just got to look at the positives and say it's encouraging. There was a much better performance than what we've seen lately. And hopefully we could build that into the Accrington game, which is going to be tricky. That's such a weird side. Topsy-turvy game for them today. And then, hopefully, the first away win at Sheffield Wednesday. In a game I'm going to, the first Oxford game I've been to since we played Man City in Christmas 2019. I cannot wait for that. And if Oxford play like that, it should be a really enjoyable game. Not much more to say about this one. I do just want to give a shout out to another channel, a guy called Reese, who runs a channel called German Gills, which is obviously a Gillingham focused YouTube channel. And he's, for the last couple of years, he does like live commentaries on games and he runs through. He does such a great job. Go over and support him. He does a very fair and unbiased, I should say, view of the game. But go and have a look on his channel and give him some support. And he invited me on to do a chat on his show this week, but I just couldn't get scheduled in. I couldn't get around to doing it. But thank you, Reese, if you're watching it, for inviting me. I do appreciate that. And other than that, the usual stuff, just hit like, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching the channel. Let's just not dwell. Let's think of the positives, Oxford fans, rather than dwelling on the negatives. And let's look forward to the Accrington game on Tuesday. And it's just another thanks from me, and we'll see you again soon.